Welcome back to the Footy Fetish Show, where the fetish is real and the footy is soccer. We have now broken down groups A through G that have been a complete success. We have prepared as best as we could, and now we're about to prepare for Group H. So, I call this episode Preparation H. Shout out to all my Austin Powers fans out there.
Well done. Good setup. God, that was awesome.
So, now that we're prepared for Group H here, Preparation H, I will now introduce our Preparation H coach, Hugh. Say what's up to the people out there.
You know, on the whole, I feel Preparation H, it feels good. It feels good on the whole.
It's good on the whole.
Welcome back, world. We got Group H, Champions League. And this isn't a Footy Fetish episode unless we invite some of our friends and guests to talk about some of their teams and share their perspectives. That being said, we got two guests today on the show. We got Fabrice Ntwali. How's it going, Fabrice?
Yeah, pretty good. Happy to be here.
All right. And we also got Coach Zach Daly. How's it going, Coach?
What's up, guys? Pretty good. Glad to be here.
All right. So we're breaking down Group H. Booty, what teams we got in Group H?
Tell you what, man, I think this is my group of death here. A lot of these groups are pretty evenly matched. I think this one, though, is my group of death. A lot of folks out there have been discussing what they think their group is. This is mine. PSG, Man United, RB Leipzig, Istanbul, go for it, Hugh.
Başakşehir.
Başakşehir.
And I don't think I gave enough of a Başakşehir. There you go. That was it. That was the one.
Not to be confused with So, we're wondering, when are these games going to be? This group will open live, coming at you on October 20th with Leipzig and Istanbul, and the game already that we want to see is PSG Man United. On October 28th, we have Istanbul versus PSG, Man United versus Leipzig. That should be a really fun one, too.
Mm-hmm.
November 4th, Istanbul versus Man United, Leipzig versus PSG. On November 24th, PSG versus Leipzig, Man United versus Istanbul. December 2nd, Istanbul versus Leipzig, Man United versus PSG. And to close this group out, Leipzig versus Man United and PSG versus Istanbul. Thoughts and prayers to Istanbul on that day.
I got to say this every single episode. I'm going to say this.
Do it.
These games being so close together are going to produce crazy results. I say it every group episode, 20-28, 28-4. You've got 7 to 8 days in between each game in which you're going to be playing domestic league games. Who knows who PSG, Man U, and RB Leipzig are going to be playing in between? We could look these up. Regardless, these are important games for all of these teams. Istanbul, I'm sorry, I don't know your league, but these other three teams are going to be fighting for a top 4 spot in their respective leagues. Expect crazy results. With that being said, we got to go around the room real quick and get y'all's rankings for Group H. We'll start with Coach Zach. How do you think this group finishes out?
So I kind of have to stay true to what we talked about earlier. I've got United 1, PSG 2, Leipzig 3, and Istanbul 4.
Twali, what you got?
I'll only make one change there. I think I'll put PSG at 1, Man U 2, Leipzig 3, and Istanbul 4th, bringing up the rear there.
And for our listeners out there, we specifically invited Fabrice Ntwali and Zach Daly on this episode because PSG is Fabrice's team and Man United is Zach's team. Can't wait to get into this discussion.
Perfect.
Let's jump right into it. Gentlemen, who wants to start it off? PSG or Man U? Anybody want to start it off here?
I'll let him have it, yeah.
Go ahead, Zach.
Oh,
Man
right.
United.
Oof.
Let's get after
So,
it.
all right, let's roll through United's recent form recently. So we've got their unfortunate loss to Crystal Palace. We've got their glorious win against Luton in the EFL. Another glorious win against Brighton. So we got 2 wins in a row versus Brighton and that abysmal day against Tottenham. The only saving grace is Liverpool lost worse on that day. So This is tough for me, United fan, and trying to go through this here. I'll kind of stay on task for a little bit, then I may trail off as I tend to do. So their recent form is not great. I mean, let's call it what it is. They're a counter-attacking team, so you expect to give up possession. But with that, you've got to finish chances, and when you're only finishing chances against Brighton, it's not good. The Crystal Palace game was abysmal. You concede possession and then you don't finish. And I think our only goal, as I'm looking at it, was Donny van der Beek sneaking one in at 2-1, which is good to have him on the scoreboard. But then you lose that game 3-1 overall. And having a former United player haunt you in Wilfred Zaha with 2 goals. And so you roll from that to Luton, which, I mean, should be a clear out-and-out win, which it was 3-0 with a lot of your younger, older players. I think Juan Mata was man of the match for that game, and still love seeing him be a part of the team. And then you look at the Brighton games, and I'll focus more on the league game than the cup game. But it's United running with their patented 4-2-3-1 right now. And then statistically giving up possession against Brighton. I mean, in fairness, it was 50-50, but that's tough. Like, you think against a team like that, you should create more chances, and we just didn't. I think we had a total of 9 shots to their 10 to Brighton. I have to keep saying that, and no offense to any of the Brighton and Hove supporters in the Footy Fetish Army, but yeah. To Brighton.
To Brighton.
Brighton.
The future's bright.
It's frustrating, and then we'll probably have a little longer conversation with this Tottenham game. Hugh would text me, or Ocho would text me. I think I was at a tournament for this game, so I was getting it on my phone, and I got that update with 2 minutes in. We score. Yes, it's gonna be great. And then my phone went in my pocket for the rest of my game, and I looked at it again. I've got a text from my buddy Slick, and then from Hugh saying, "Hey man, it's not that bad, the red card." But it was bad. Like the first 15 minutes before the red card, defending was atrocious. I've never seen a center back pick up and move his own player to prevent a goal from happening. Like, I don't know if you guys saw the replay of Harry Maguire grabbing Luke Shaw as Luke Shaw is trying to clear the ball and move him. I have no defense for that.
No.
The only thing I can think of is that Harry Maguire owes somebody some money somewhere. And he needed that ball to go in, so he sacrificed the poor Luke Shaw and just dragged him away from it. There's hardly any excuses in that game. The marking's atrocious. And of course, after the red card happens, things go from there. But my argument for that red card is going to be that's super soft. It's a super soft red card.
That was.
If you look at it, Lamela comes in with a forearm. Now he's trying to put it in his chest, but it does make contact with Martial's face. So Martial just gives him essentially, like I would, and I'll listen to other arguments, but a tap on the face to say, "Hey man, come on." And Lamela goes down because apparently it broke his jaw in that moment. But in the age of VAR, if you're going to give Martial that red card, I think you have to look at Lamela getting a red card as well too.
Absolutely.
That was a situation like that. Referee should have taken both of them aside, yellow card both of them, have this conversation. If I see either of you doing anything again, you're gone.
Yeah.
Not a straight red.
For the spirit of the game, it's so early. It's 2-1.
Yeah.
Like,
ruin the game.
He literally determined the outcome. Granted, they put in a bunch more goals, but I mean, you now. It's a numerical advantage for Tottenham already. Like, you've just established that. So I'm with you. Soft red. As far as those first 28 minutes, can you kind of break down, as you said, it's a 4-2-3-1 system. Yeah. Can you kind of break down their style of play that you see them using going forward?
Well, so it's Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, and he's bringing in kind of the old Alex Ferguson style for United, which is built off a counterattack. You play defense, and then once you get the ball, you fly forward. And that's where, a lot of people are going to give us shit for it, but that's how we earn the PKs, is we put you on your heels, we're cutting in the box and we get the penalty kick. So there's that aspect to it. But the other side is you look at the young wingers that we have and the young players that we have in our attack, and you look at the ability of Pogba and Fernandez to kind of unlock teams. Pogba is, to me, one of the best in the world at playing a 40-yard ball on a dime in a dangerous area. And then Fernandez can facilitate closer in towards goal. You would think you would add all that to it, and then hopefully with the addition of Donny van der Beek that we're kind of building that counterattack to smoothly go. So that's the strength of United, is built in that counterattack with the speed up front and the passing ability of those midfield three. But then to kind of go through the weaknesses, right, is the two center backs. And what did we not address in the transfer window? Everything but.
Yep.
And so it's you bring in. I like Donny van der Beek, man. He's going to be a really good player, but it doesn't make sense to me.
No.
In the sense of, you just signed Scott McTominay to a 5-year deal, and he played really well for you last season. You kept Matic, which is fine. Matic has been playing okay. So now you add a third to that spot. It's okay. We were already deep there, so we're going to add to that. Okay. Van der Beek's young. Got to maybe continue on a couple of years. All right. Who else did we bring in? So we bring in Fernandez in January.
Yeah.
But it's this running theme with United of we should have brought in Fernandez started in the summer transfer window.
Mm-hmm.
But United are trying to play these games with everybody, and it's pushing everybody off.
Yeah, we're seeing it with Sancho right now.
I'm sorry, say it again?
We're seeing it with Sancho and Dortmund. What you're saying, we're seeing it.
And it's even Dembele, even when they try to move on to that, they just don't get it done. And it's a frustration of, I'm not frustrated even with the coaching staff. I think Ollie's a good coach. I think his assistant, Mike, and I can't put it was Ferguson's assistant. It's a really good coaching staff. Problem is we have Ed Woodward, who only cares about the business side. And they want to live off this United of old, of, how did United become one of the best brands in the world, and at points the top brand in the world, was winning games and winning European championships and being in those games. They're still trying to live off that. And so they're not spending the money to just get the deal done. Like, here's the reality. You're Manchester United. It's just like PSG that we'll get to later. It's, if they want the player, they go and get the player. Is your price going to be hiked up because of who you are? Yeah. Because you've earned that position. And so it's they're not willing to spend the money on these guys, and it's hurting. Because look at Bruno Fernandes was arguably the best player in the EPL in the second half of last season.
Right.
What if we would have had that at the beginning of the season? So it's the same thing with Sancho. And you got Cavani on a free, which I'm good with. I mean, Cavani fits the tailor-made number 9 position for United, going all the way back for forever. He's a true out-and-out forward. He's very similar to, your Berbatovs, your Van Nistelrooys, your Van Persies. He fits the mold, and your Zlatans from a couple of years ago. He fits that mold. He's a true number 9. But we have no depth there. Just like we have no depth at center back. If you're telling me that Harry Maguire and Victor Lindelof and Eric Bailly are the guys, I'm not convinced, like, whatsoever. And you did nothing this transfer window to help that out. So
yeah, I was reading somewhere that apparently Ole had a pretty set list of guys that he wanted, and like names that popped up were obviously someone like Sancho, who like is expensive in COVID time. So I understand the them being reluctant to like drop that much money on a player. But other guys that were mentioned are guys like Upamecano, who we've seen in the league, someone who's sitting at Leipzig, who's like itching to go to a big team and show what he can do. And it's not unrealistic for me to think that £50 million would have done that deal for them. Other names that I've heard, people like Jack Grealish, who's doing great things for Aston Villa, or someone else that mentioned that Ole wanted. None of those guys were picked up. So not addressing the center back position is a pretty big fuck up by Woodard there. I heard a rumor that like he had been given extra security now because the Man U fans, the faithfuls, are like,
yeah, they're going to be brutal. Well, it's like you talked about. And I looked at the same, probably the same article or someone similar to you, to where Ollie had a list of players he wanted. He got zero.
Damn.
0 players on that list. And so how much faith do you have in that coach now?
Especially for
It's-
how well he finished the season.
Yeah, I think they did the numbers and everything towards the end of the season, and it was, had United been in that form all season, they're finishing top 2. I think they had more points than Liverpool. And so it's, okay, this is a guy, and United arguably looked like one of the best teams in their playing style. They don't look like that now. And part of that is they've not refreshed. They've only added depth to their stronger positions, because even Alex...
Tell us.
Tell
Tell
us.
us. Tell us.
Yeah, tell us. For Brazil, really good player. He's 27. Fantastic player, but we already have outside backs. And, who's he going to replace? Luke Shaw or even Aaron Wan-Bissaka? Luke Shaw is a very good player, and Wan-Bissaka has been one of the best in the league. And behind them, you've got Brandon Williams, who's a great young talent. So now you've just added depth to those positions that you already had strength at. So it doesn't make any sense to me.
It's almost like the same situation with the whole Sancho situation because, okay, so you're going to go get Sancho, but so then who's the odd man out?
Yeah, exactly.
Is it Greenwood? Is it Martial? Is it Rashford? I know we mentioned it a few times on the show, but again, it's a great player and that'd be a great ad, but it just doesn't make sense. Like why?
Yeah.
Why? That's not what you need. You need another center back to pair with Maguire, obviously. We saw, we just saw that.
Sorry, I was gonna say Donny Van de
Go ahead.
Beek, who's a really good player. I don't think is the type of midfielder that they needed in that position. I think they needed someone who's more like a pass breaker upper, like a cleanup guy, like a
Conte,
Conte
Verratti.
player. Yeah, like that kind of guy that cleans up behind the Pogbas and the Bruno Fernandes of this league. And they just went and got someone who's like an 8, almost like a. Yeah, I don't know. I don't understand that buy there either.
And it kind of goes back to what we talked about a little bit with like Barcelona too. It's what made United great is their academy. When Ferguson came in, he tripled the spending on the academy and brought it up. And so those generations that you saw through like 99 through 2008, the core of that was through the academy. Your Scholeses, your Nevilles, your Beckhams, your all of that were the core of the team. And then you could bring in a Cantona. You could bring in a Rooney, because a Rooney was an academy product for us. He was an Everton kid.
Mhm.
And so you had that core who understood the United way, and now look at where we're at. Now, you can argue that Pogba is an academy product because he technically is, but he went to Juve, and we still haven't seen the best Pogba, and that's frustrating. And I like Pogba. It's not a guy that I want to see shipped off somewhere, but are we surrounding these players with the best intentions? And it's, your academy products, I think, are only Rashford, Greenwood. Your back line isn't. Wan-Bissaka came from another club, Crystal Palace. Luke Shaw came from Southampton. You've got Fernandez came from another team. So you've only got 1 or 2 guys in there that have been through the academy and understand kind of what United wants to do, or a United way. But again, we see that with turnover in coaches right now too.
Yeah. So going back to this group here, they seem to have some problems going forward. There definitely is going to be a lot of weaknesses and not a lot of strengths. As you said, it's this counter-attacking style.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to be going up against PSG and RB Leipzig, who are both very strong attacking. And their biggest weakness, I think we can all agree, is that back line.
Yeah.
So with this group, if you're going to be drafting players from this team, I'm gonna end on you, Zach.
That's fine.
So we'll go around. Booty, who would you draft from this Manchester United team?
Van de Beek, I think, would get you a lot of style points there. A lot of passes. He's going to facilitate a lot, but also, Fernandez just as well. Going to be interesting to see those two develop together. It's going to be really, really fun. That probably be my 2 as far as fantasy wise.
Okay. I'm going to go with Rashford. I think he's proven to be a very consistent player. and he's going to be on that front line. If he gets service, if he gets his opportunities, I think he will put them away. We'll pass to Fabrice. Who you got, Fabrice? Give us a player.
I'd say a pairing up top of Martial and Rashford would be two fantasy guys for me to look out for, as well as Bruno Fernandes chipping in with either the goal, the assist, or like the IPK. I think he's a penalty taker for Manchester, so I'd say those guys.
Nice. And Zach, finally.
All right, so I'm gonna give you two as well. From a defensive perspective, I'm gonna give you Aaron Wan-Bissaka.
Nice. I like that one.
And then from up top, a guy that probably needs something to prove in this group is Cavani.
Ooh, that's a good one. I like that one a lot. We're definitely going to be seeing him in Champions League.
Yes.
Especially with this tight schedule. He will be getting minutes. He will be potentially getting some starts. So
Yeah.
I really like that pick. That's question around the room. Are you going to pick De Gea? Where do you rank him as far as goalkeepers for your team?
What day is it?
Yeah, Tuesdays he's excellent.
Wednesdays.
I don't know.
If they're playing on a Wednesday though, which there's a couple Wednesdays in here.
So he's definitely, I'd say he's a top 10 goalkeeper, but where in that top 10? I mean, like you said it perfectly. What day is it?
Yeah.
Not consistent enough to be worth a first or second goalkeeper overall. Even though
I think
he's got
that's
the skills.
going to be the interesting part is, who's sitting behind him is Dean Henderson. And so Dean Henderson for Sheffield last season was great. And so it'll be interesting. I think it's either going to push De Gea to live up, or it's going to open the door for Henderson, who's a fantastic keeper.
Question for you as well, since we're on that topic. Romero, he wants out, right? Or is he gone already?
I think he's gone.
Yeah.
I think we released. Let me double check that. But I'm fairly certain he left in the summer.
Okay.
Solid keeper as well.
While Zach is looking that up, let's do some hot takes for Man United. Booty, you want to start?
I would love to. I have a good and a bad for United. The bad, Ole doesn't make it to December, and they bring in Pochettino. And again, it's not because I agree with you, Zach. I don't think it's because he's a bad coach, but it's Woodward. He's a dumbass, like just straight jackass. The good, I think I'm glad you brought up De Gea. I was going to because I've been bashing him a lot. I was going to say this is the tournament where he turns it around and finds himself again. But that's my good. That's my good, my bad.
De Gea has an amazing group stage performance.
Yep, and we're all loving him again.
Okay, I can dig it. I'm going to go hot take. This is a bad one. Man, you finish third and go back to Europa. Ntwali, what you got? Zach's face. It's a hot take. It's a hot take. That's all. I'm not saying it's going to happen.
My hot take is going to be that Rashford truly becomes the leader of this team. This is going to be his breakout season.
Awesome. That's a great hot take. And Zach, they have no American players, so this one.
I'll do a good and a bad. I'll follow Booty on this one. I think the good is you see United kind of come together as a unit and bring in the old Mourinho siege mentality, us against the world. And I think you see them come together and really push through this. However, the bad of this comes in their league play. I think they sacrifice league play until they get through this, because like you said, these games come fast. You can't pick. Like it's when in normal season you make sacrifices, but this is going to really show depth. And like we talked about, the depth at center back is troublesome right now.
I dig that.
Yep.
I'm going to add a good hot take. They finish first in the group, and they overtake PSG. That's a good hot take for you, Zach.
I appreciate that, Hugh.
Okay, moving on to the next team in this group. We've got PSG. Ntwali, why don't you take us over, go over their form real quick and some formations and style of play.
All right. So PSG started the season on a 2-game losing streak. A lot of their main players were either out through COVID. I think they had like a bit of their core guys like Keylor Navas, Icardi, Neymar, and Mbappe at some point were all under the weather, like all caught COVID at one point or another. And Di Maria got suspended
That's right.
somehow. They
I
had
forgot about
a
that.
1-0 loss to Lens, who's like a team that just got promoted. And that one was really just a bunch of their youngsters playing in the game. Not a good one to watch, not one to pinpoint as like their form bane, either up or down. Their second loss was against Marseille, and that was the derby in France. That was like their harshest rival in the French league. That was a crazy game. 5 red cards. I don't know how many yellow, something like 14 or 15. A fight broke out at the end. Neymar claimed that there was a racial slur aimed at him. The other team countered with the same, saying that Neymar had one used against a Japanese player for them. Pretty rocky. And then after that, I think as their starters started to trickle in, they started to regain their form. I think there was like a, let's see here, is a 1-0 win against Mets, which was pretty straightforward. I think they should have scored probably 5 or 6 for that game. Missed a lot of open chances, and that's something that's like a recurring theme for PSG. They tend to get enough chances to win by like 5 or 6 goals and only put 1 or 2 in, and that's something that in the French league will get you wins, but in the Champions League, as we've seen against Bayern in the final, like Mbappe had 1 or 2 that they should have put in. That's
Yeah.
something they'll need to be more killer when it comes to like finishing those chances because you don't know how many you're gonna get against a really good team in Europe. You're only gonna get 2 or 3 in a game, and that's the difference between being a winner and being a loser. Um, and I think after those games, they've really only played weak opposition. I'll have to say for the amount of like international players that they have. Angers, Reims, and Nice were not really in opposition. We've yet to see them face a big French team, something like Lyon or Marseille, or kind of like the resurgence of Monaco in a way, and see how well they can put up against those guys. But in the French league, they're coming back to their best. As far as additions to the team, the most remarkable one is probably making the Icardi deal permanent. So they bought him outright from Inter. They've also picked up a few key players in other areas. They were on the lookout for a tall midfielder. They picked up the little Pereira from Porto. They needed let's see. They needed depth, I think, all around. So they got Moise Ken as the backup striker, replacing both the outgoing
Moise
Choupo-Moting
Kean.
and Cavani, who's left for Man U. I think they needed depth. They needed a replacement at right back for Thomas Meunier, who just left, so that they just picked up Alessandro Florenzi, who just scored an amazing goal.
I saw that.
I think that what's that?
I was just saying I saw that. I saw that he had scored and they just picked him up.
Yeah, he scored an amazing goal. I think it's good to have someone with experience, Champions League experience. He's a vet. He's not a rookie who's gonna have to grow into the position. He's someone who's already got that knowledge. He's an Italy international, so I think that was a good pickup there. And then I think the other guys was really just adding depth. Like when you look at someone like Moise Ken, he's not expected to be a starter and get a bunch of minutes. But when you think about any of these big teams, whether it be Man U, whether it be Juve, Barcelona, PSG, the big four in England, what you have to consider is that they're playing in so many competitions. They're playing in their league. They're playing the Champions League. They're playing 2 different cups. Like England has the Carabao Cup and the FA Cup. France has the French Cup and the French League Cup. That's a lot of games to chain up. So it's gonna really be interesting to see what the rotation schedule is, and who are those bench players that are gonna come in clutch and be reliable and consistent enough to win games even when you don't play your stars, your Neymars and Mbappes. Um, but yeah, I think pretty optimistic about this season. I think they've added depth where they needed to, and I'm looking forward to see how that turns out.
One thing I want to point out is that I've noticed Tuchel has been kind of experimenting with formations. It looks
Yeah,
like he has a 4-4-2 where Icardi and Mbappe were up top. He did a 4-1-4-1 with Icardi as the sole lone 9 and Mbappe out on the left wing and Neymar kind of tighter into the midfield. He's also done the traditional 4-3-3, but I think that was a result of not having Neymar and Di Maria, so he needed to figure out how to get a formation together. But we saw Tuchel's brilliance in the Champions League with his formations and ability to kind of counter these other teams, going up against RB Leipzig, going up against Bayern Munich. He held Bayern Munich to 1 goal. That in itself is an amazing accomplishment, being that they are one of the hottest teams in Europe and the most offensively minded teams in Europe. So Tuchel, he's been honing in more and more as he gets more time with this PSG team. So that's really good to see. Ntwali, is there anything specifically you've noticed differently with PSG maybe this season that you haven't seen before?
Yeah, I'd say the mindset of certain key players has been noteworthy, and I think I'll probably highlight Neymar as being the main one there. He's somebody who has had the weight of his price tag hanging over his head for the past 3 or 4 seasons since he's been there. And there's always that talk of like, yeah, there's Messi and Ronaldo. Who's that third guy? And Mbappe coming up as a world class player has also sort of been a double edged sword. On the one hand, it takes a little bit of the weight off of his shoulders as being like the main guy that carries his team. But on the other side, it's been a little bit of like a struggle of like he's been in Messi's shadow before. Does he come out of that and become the true leader of PSG, or is this young 21-year-old who's supposed to be the next greatest thing going to outshine him? And this season, I've definitely noticed that he's been more of a team player. He goes in for tackles. He's committed both forward and on the defensive side of the team, and that's one thing that determines how PSG plays and how Tuchel sets up his team. The 4-4-2 with Mbappe and Icardi as the two strikers is based on the idea that you play with two midfielders that are entirely defensive, and now you have your two wingers, the Neymar and the Di Maria, assisting them on the defensive side of play when they're returning back. And that's something that they've struggled to coordinate well. And those two guys are not very great defensive players, but if at least they can put some pressure on the team they're playing against and give a little bit of that help to the midfield and the defense, that helps. But when they completely just stay up top and don't put in any shift on the defensive side, it forces Tuchel to think about what would a team look like if I had a 3-man midfield, and that takes out somebody in the front four. And sometimes it's Icardi, sometimes it's Di Maria, but being able to count on all four of those guys being able to like come back and press and defend and tackle has probably given him a little bit more of that freedom to play that formation, which I think the 4-4-2 is what he'd rather play ultimately.
Interesting. Yeah.
Glad you brought that up. I'm glad we got on that little Tuchel rant there, because something I wanted to throw out, we often forget, he is a German coach. So maybe that's why he kind of knew how to go after Bayern.
And Leipzig.
Yes, and I want Ntwali to touch on some more players, and before we do that, before we dive into that section, I think we need to break down some of PSG's strengths. We kind of mentioned it a little bit already, but they are hella creative at just creating chances. They're great with that. Yeah. And then they're great at finishing too. That's something we saw them kind of struggle with in that Champions League final, this previous one. Obviously, when they're not finishing those chances, it's not going to happen. Obviously, that's with any team. But another thing that they're great with, they favor that left side. They love the through balls to Mbappe, to Neymar. When they can get that and they can get those guys into space, that's when you're really going to see them take off. They really weren't able to really get that going against Bayern. But if they can figure some things out, it's a dangerous team. It's a very dangerous team. This is definitely, for me, a possible Final Four team in the Champions League this year. Some of their weaknesses, that are kind of relevant. The offsides. They're not really good with balls in the air either.
They just lost. They just lost Thiago Silva as well.
Correct.
That's a big piece for aerial duels. So.
Correct. And speaking of players,
Yeah.
we already mentioned they added Moise Kean. Who's a guy for you, Ocho?
I really like the Florenzi ad, and as Ntwali said, bringing Icardi back on loan. But for fantasy, this is one of my favorite players. I love this guy so much, Verratti. He is the workhorse in the midfield for them. I love how gritty he is. He's a little gnat, but he's so good under pressure. And I think looking back to that final, he was a player. If he was 100% healthy, it would have really helped PSG against Bayern's high press. But I'm going to pass it over to Zach. Zach, we haven't really heard from you about PSG. Give us some of your thoughts and a key player you would draft.
Yeah, I think the only thing I've got, PSG has a ton of talent. The worry I have, though, becomes kind of what you saw at the end of the season last year is injuries. And now we've got a compact schedule. And so kind of like we've talked about with this group, it's game on top of game. Because even just looking at the Champions League schedule, you know, like we were talking about earlier, now you add in cup games. Now you add in league games. And this isn't a group that you can really play around with. You're not going to take off the Leipzig game. You're not going to take off the United game. Istanbul, you probably could. And luckily that's their second game in the group. But it's tough to kind of take this off. I'm gonna do a dark horse player, Julian Brandt. I'd like to see, with getting maybe some extra playing time to really see what he can do within this PSG side if he gets the time.
I dig it. I like that one. Booty, who's a player that you would draft?
I'll give you a curveball. Navas, baby. We forget he's alone in the back there, but hell of a keeper still is.
Kept him in the game for the final.
Kept him in the game for the final for sure.
And
the semifinal.
And the semifinal and the quarterfinal against Atalanta.
A lot of the saves he makes, man, they're highlight worthy.
Was he in the game against Leipzig? He might not have been.
Yes, actually he was. Okay, so he was hurt. It was the one before that.
It was Atalanta.
When he got hurt.
That's you're right. I remember that. No, but he kept him in the game.
Correct.
I like that. That's a good pick.
Yes.
Ntwali.
What you got, Ntwali?
Last but not least, give us some of your. I mean, of course, we know Neymar and Mbappe. Those are first-round picks, but give us let's go deeper. Give us a deeper player.
Look out for Paredes in the midfield. He came in from Zenit, and they weren't really sure what they were getting. They wanted sort of like a soldier in the midfield there to kind of accompany Verratti. Struggle for his first kind of few months, like first 6 months, and then he came in kind of strong through the playoff of the Champions League. I think against Dortmund, especially, he muzzled their midfield there and helped a lot with like moving the ball forward. And again, I think in like the semi against Atalanta and against Leipzig, he was really instrumental in breaking up a lot of that play. So look out for Paredes being pretty influential. And just to sort of like flash over other positions in the team going forward into the Champions League, Juan Bernat's a very massive loss there for them. I think Levin Kurzawa blows hot and cold from time to time. And then the only other backup option on the left back position is the 20-year-old Mitchell Bakker, who's a Dutch youth player. He's promising and up and coming, but hasn't had any of the Champions League experience. So if Kurzawa, who's very prone to injury, is down, like you're looking at a 20-year-old going up against Man U and either a Martial or Rashford or like someone very experienced in the Champions League. So that could be a make or break position in that team.
I got one player that I'm just remembering, Marquinhos. Somehow finds a way to get forward, score goals. He scored a goal for Brazil the other night. He was scoring goals all throughout the knockout rounds for Champions League last year, and now he will be the leader of that back line. So that's another player I would definitely be drafting higher.
Yeah, he's a new captain now. He's had experience playing in the midfield, so he can dish out that pass. He's
Yep.
very calm on the ball, very good at heading, and ferocious too. He's definitely a fighter. So
Yep.
I'm hopeful that even though we've just lost Thiago Silva, who I don't think should have left,
Agreed.
Marquinhos can step into that position and be the leader of that team.
Definitely. All right, let's go around and get hot takes for PSG. Fabrice, we're going to end off on you, so start thinking of your hot take here. Zach, I'm going to pass it to you. Give us a hot take for PSG. You can be good or bad or just one.
Let's do this. I think PSG finishes third. Has a rough go of it.
Europa?
PSG lives in Europa.
Whoa. Hey, that's hot.
I think
You know, the
I
Homer
think the
Simpson
injury
meme?
bug catches up to him.
Interesting. Hey, that's possible. This is a hard group. This is not an easy group. And the
No.
next team we're talking about could totally take first or second here.
Damn.
Booty, hot take.
They're out in the round of 16 again.
Hot take. Neymar and Mbappe carry this team back to the final.
There you go. I was thinking that for a minute, but
It's Neymar. Y'all haven't seen Neymar's highlights from the Bolivia game? Fabrice, I know you sent that to the group. I
Yeah.
watched to the end of that game and then saw the highlights. He has reached another level as far as he's Super Saiyan Brazilian. The things he's doing with the ball right now, he's on another level. Be on the lookout for Neymar to take over Champions League.
And he's been like that in the French league too. His vision just seems to have taken up another notch, and he's just efficient. Like he dribbles when he needs to, but he'll feed it out there when he needs to just put someone else on.
One
Hot
thing that I
take,
really got to point out about Neymar, I'll get to your hot take. One thing I got to point out about Neymar is he's finally being selfless, and we're seeing more assists from Neymar. So yeah, give us your hot take.
They go all the way this time. They win it this year.
Whoa, hot
Ho!
take, PSG.
They were 90
right.
minutes away from doing it, so hoping they get it right this time.
I mean, when you're that close, it's not easy to get back there, but you know what you did to get there, and now you know what you did to not finish. So I think they've all got that in their minds, and we'll see what happens. It's going to be an interesting Champions League group stage. With that being said, let's move on to this other team. You might have heard of them as well, RB Leipzig. RB Leipzig is a team in Germany. They are not a favorite among the German fans with their recent rise to the Bundesliga, but this is a team to look out for. This is a hot team. Booty, I'm going to pass it to you for the form. Give us your thoughts.
So their form is actually looking pretty decent here. 4-0 win versus Schalke. Draw 1-1 versus Leverkusen. We got a 3-0 win versus Mainz, and we have a 3-0 win versus Nuremberg. Their style is very interesting. Why don't you tell us about their coach there, Hugh?
Oof, Julian Nagelsmann just burst out onto the scene. Just came from this this kind of German umbrella that we're seeing really kind of hit the scene in the coaching world. Lots of German coaches are having a lot of success, and I think it has to do with this formation, the 4-2-3-1, which is a double pivot formation, but it's a very active formation that it's always high press. You're getting a lot of players up the field in attack as well as defense, and mainly starting with attack to where if you turn the ball over, your players are already in a position to win it back. And when you win it back, you're in the attacking half. So look for them to do the exact same thing. They've got a lot of young, energetic, just feisty, ferocious players. We're going to go through some players in a second. Their strengths are free kick shots, set pieces, creating chances from the center, as well as the width, long shots, and, of course, their finishing. They did, however, just lose Timo Werner.
Right.
But they've still got a Chester drawer full of just talented youngsters at this club. With that being said, let's go around the room for some players. I'm gonna start it off with Poulsen, the forward, who was instrumental for Timo Werner's success. He allowed Timo Werner to kind of be that second striker, or that false nine kind of player. And against PSG, I was very surprised at how well he did. So look out for him. That would be a late round flyer for me. Booty, who are some players for you?
First of all, I just want to point this out. Bundesliga, you can go ahead and keep hating them because they're going to be around for a minute.
Yes, they will.
What's that saying? They hate us because they ain't us. They hate us because they ain't us? They hate us because they ain't us.
Ain't us.
Get over it. They're going to be around.
They're going to be around.
So, that being said, man, Poulsen, man. I'm going to go Tyler Adams. The U.S. guy, man.
Right.
I got to, right? Or another one that I really like that we kind of we
I know what you're gonna say.
We found him last year. We found him last year in Champions League with Dynamo Zagreb. Danny Elmo, and they got him on the cheap this not the previous transfer window, the one before that. Great midfielder that you can also kind of slide in there as a wing as well. I'm pretty sure Dynamo used him as a wing a little bit. He can score you goals. He can facilitate for you as well. So that's a guy to keep an eye on. That's a guy you could probably snag in a late round if you are doing a little fantasy draft.
Young Spaniard with some caps for the Spanish team.
Who you got?
No, that's Danny Olmo.
Oh, Danny Olmo.
Your boy
okay.
Danny
okay.
Olmo.
Yes.
Twali, I'm going to pass it to you. Give us some players here. They got some hot ones.
You sounded like you were going to go off on a tangent
sorry.
about somebody. That's all I was like, who is it?
I was following up for you.
Okay.
Go ahead, Twali.
So for me, a few of the guys to look out for, obviously Upamecano, center back, he's their rock there, really. And I think that's one of the obvious ones. Another one, Sabitzer, is a pretty clear and obvious one.
Sabitzer.
The two
Wow.
surprise people. First is Nkunku, who they purchased from PSG. And in the past Champions League season, he's been very good, very consistent kind of playmaker off the left wing for them. The second is a player that just got on loan from AS Roma, and that's Justin Kluivert, son of the Dutch legend. And he's coming in on loan over there, and look out for him to be an impact player for them.
Very, very true. Very true. Zach, unfortunately, just stepped out. I'm going to name two players for him, Haslenberg and Angelino, two defenders on that back line, because they love to go forward, because they have that 4-2-3-1. They love to get wide. Angelino is a great player for getting that ball wide and up the field. Look for him to be making a lot of assists and balls into the box. Haslenberg is the old experienced player in the center back that he's consistent. He's very important for the build-up, and you'll see him get a lot of the passing. So with that being said, hot takes for RB Leipzig. I'm going to go, they finished top two.
Top two?
Top
I
two
like that.
team.
Okay.
One of them's getting set.
Ooh. Yeah, hot take, man. I see them going around 16.
Nice.
How about that?
Twali, what you got?
Hot take, Leipzig wins against Man U.
Oh, love it. Love it. And I'm going to do
See
this
that
hot
too.
take for Zach Adams. I'm going to predict his hot take is Tyler Adams scores a hat trick against Man U and PSG. I don't know. Just keeping on the American player theme. It just had to be outrageous, Twali.
Hey, he had one in, what was that, the quarterfinal?
Yeah,
so,
he
hey,
had a goal. That's right. He had an important goal in the quarterfinals.
why not two more in the group stage?
Hell yeah. With that being said, we got our last team here. We got Istanbul. Their full name, let me get to it real quick. Istanbul Basaksehir. They are from Turkey. Istanbul's in Turkey, guys, help me out.
Yes.
Pretty sure. Their last form, they're in some pretty bad form right now. They're in some pretty bad form.
What do you say?
Yeah.
Their form? Yeah, that's bad.
It's some pretty bad. Pretty bad form.
Yep.
Last game, they drew 0-0. One before that, lost 2-0. One before that, lost 2-0. Galatasaray. Classic Champions League team. You know they're mad. You shouldn't. They're saying Galatasaray saying to Istanbul, That should be our spot. That should be us. You can go to Champions League, but just know we beat you. Last team they lost to 2-0. So their last 4 games, draw, loss, loss, loss. It's not looking good. My hot take is going to be pretty predictable here, but formation, it looks like they play a 4-4-2, very consistent style of play. They like to do a lot of short passing possession, like to do a lot of long shots and crossing. So it looks like they can get the ball down the field and put balls in the box, whether it's from the sides, crossing it in, or from the top of the box, long shots towards the goal. Their strengths are set pieces, aerial duels, and defending set pieces. Players to pick, I don't recommend picking anyone from this team, but if you need...
He has don't recommend.
I said don't recommend is my point on my sheet here. But if you got to pick some players, they do have a famous name here. I'm going to say him first. Martin Skirtle.
Skirtle, like Squirtle.
The defender from Liverpool.
Pokemon, man.
You know, we heard about a couple years ago. They also have another defender who it appears to be very important in their build-up, Carlos Punk, center back. And then they also have another player, Alexandru Upareneu. I think I said that right. Upareneu.
You're on fire with these pronunciations.
I'm getting it,
there.
dog. I'm on point. I'm going to shout out to my my matcha this morning. Shout out to matcha. Hot takes for Istanbul Başakşehir. They lose every single game. That's my hot take. Not a single goal is scored.
Yeesh. I was going to go my hot take. Someone on this team will score a goal. It's going to be somebody. How about you, Ntwali?
Ntwali, what you got?
They get a draw against Leipzig.
Damn. Hot take, and I love it. Okay. Well, that closes us out for this group, Group H. Wait, hold on. Zach just texted in a hot take. Let me read it off. Oh, hot take from Zach. Istanbul finishes the group with 4 points. I like it. All you need is 4 ties.
4, baby.
That's possible. That being said, we are finished with Group H here. Booty.
Let's do some gospel.
Deacon Booty. Please.
I have a prayer for you. It's the gospel according to Footy Fetish. It's time to close this out with some people that we love. Give some shout-outs. I'll shout out mine very quickly here. My shout-out is to my buddy Ben, who continuously has texted me about fantasy football and bad decisions he made. That has now become the commissioner's problem. It's not. So...
Leave me alone.
Leave me alone. The last thing he said was, I think you should do this and that and this and that, because I would never have put that. I would never put a Miami running back in. I would never have started him. I said, I traded you that running back. So you would trade for a running back that you wouldn't play. Go to sleep.
Yeah, go to sleep.
Good night.
My shout out. I'm going to do my neighbor. I just remembered this. My neighbor, actually, he edged my lawn, which had been about 2 months of unedged. I called a friend to come do it, and as soon as I opened my front door, I noticed that it was completely edged. So, neighbor, shout out to you. Thank you for doing my front yard edging. I mowed the lawn, just didn't edge it, but shout out to you, neighbor. Ntwali, who's your shout out?
I'll shout out a good buddy of mine from Lafayette, Sean, who's huge Chelsea fan. Happy for him that his team managed to get some good buys, and it seems like they're on the right track to turn around their past fortune and be a top 4 team again. So
Very excited. Yeah, very excited to talk about Chelsea, which we have, wink, wink, but we'll do it tomorrow. But this closes us out for Group H. Booty, would you please?
Absolutely. Gentlemen,
send
thank
us
you.
home?
Thank you guys for being on here with us today. It's fantastic. It was very fun, as it always is with you guys. Very informative as well. That being said, please follow us. We are on Facebook, Twitter for the Twatters. We are on all platforms, Instagram, Patreon. Help us get us to the World Cup fund. Get the Footy Fetish Show to the World Cup. Donate a couple dollars. We got a couple years. We're trying to hit up the 2026 World Cup, so there's plenty of time for you to get us some dough. Get us some dough, baby. Also, try Nova Acai if you haven't. In the meantime, it's been the Footy Fetish Show.
Hold on. I got Zach's shout out.
Go for it.
Shout out is to the 10 Americans in the Champions League. Zach, always coming through for me. I appreciate you. I know you're listening. 10 Americans are in the Champions League. It's got to be a record.
Oh, I actually posted that to our Insta today.
That's gotta be a record.
It's a picture of all of them.
That's got to be a record. Anyway,
Yep.
sorry. This has been the Footy Fetish Show, where the fetish is real and the footy is soccer.
Peace out, Boy Scouts.
Thanks, y'all.